got a bit of land. We're just down in Whitehall, just south of the industrial park. I guess it used to be a racetrack at one point in time for people there were a lot of money going on, so I get people coming in all the time talking about that. But there's two aspects of the quarry that I'm focused on the development stage. One of my major costs is diesel fuel. And diesel fuel goes up and down. It's the second major cost after payroll. And the other is I have a hard time, and you guys probably too have a hard time getting west from I-79 because there's really not access. If my trucks leave the quarry to go west, where all the gas activity is, they have to go up north, they have to go down around Coons Run Road, and it really kind of adds to the cost and makes it less competitive. So I'm focused on trying to get another access road to the west. So we're basically kind of coming at this by two perspectives. One is the R2 hydrogen hub project. One of the big advantages that hydrogen has over other fuels for transportation is you can store it and move it. So it's good for long haul transportation. If you have a truck going from Maine to Florida, you can't get there on one battery. But you can refuel and hydrogen truck get there. You just want to stop and it's a 15-minute fuel. The other application for hydrogen vehicles is heavy haul, rocks, logs, cement, buses, trash trucks, because a battery in a vehicle is very, very heavy, and a battery in a truck is even bigger and heavier. So you use all your cargo capacity. You're only allowed a certain amount of weight when you're transporting stuff on the road. So you use it all to carry your battery around. You really don't have any advantage. So hydrogen is lighter. You can store it. You can refuel. So it gives you that advantage for heavy haul transport. So what we're doing is taking our aggregate trucks or aggregate vehicles that deliver rock from the quarry to customers, and we're converting those over to hydrogen. And then we're going to have a depot, which is a refueling depot at the quarry, which will receive hydrogen from outside other producers in the hub, which I'll talk about, fill the trucks up, and then the trucks will go out and deliver aggregate. But we're also working with Marion County, which is H2O, in the hydrogen and oxygen. So we're going to end up with hydrogen, oxygen can be released. And then we're going to take that hydrogen and we're going to fuel Marion County school buses, transport vehicles, service vehicles as part of the downstream operation. And that grant was already been applied for with the EPA. It's a $40 million grant we applied for last month. So if successful, we'll have hydrogen production, hydrogen use, as well as to use this depot facility at the quarry. The other project, and I'll talk about this too, is that we're working with Marion County, is the Hydrogen Institute. So one of the things I'm hearing from a lot of the OEMs, original equipment manufacturers, such as Cummins and Toyota and Nikola, who are developing these hydrogen vehicles, as well as the customers, the trucking companies, saying, who's going to work on these vehicles? They're not diesel engines, so I got to find a mechanic. So one of the things we're working on there with the EPA is developing a Hydrogen Institute that Fairmont Community College would have to do the programming at, as well as West Virginia University. And then we have located at the facility so that they can take advantage of the trucks and the main facilities we have here already. So three projects. One is the depot, which I'm involved in with Arch 2, which is basically bringing in fuel, powering hydrogen trucks to move aggregate to customers. The second is the hydrogen production facility. If we win the grant, we'll actually make hydrogen at the site to run Marion County transport vehicles and buses. And then the third is the educational component. Okay, let's train up hydrogen mechanics, CDL drivers, and that has a real transformative value because it can become the Hydrogen Institute for the state, but also for the country, because you don't need 30 different institutes. I mean, they're expensive to build. You got to output of equipment, teachers, the planning that goes into it. So we can kind of become the hydrogen mechanic educational center of the state, but also the region. So those are the three projects that I'll touch on today. So the bipartisan infrastructure law. it really has come into play. It was way back in 21, which seems like ages ago. It was $1.2 trillion. This is when we were going through COVID and we were trying to stimulate the economy. Well, that money is still out there. It's just getting released into the economy now. And we're all paying for it through our taxes. So it's targeted at infrastructure, roads and bridges. You can see some of that up on the screen. But it's really targeted at climate change, transforming communities that have been hit by coal obsolescence. So there's a real focus on using that money to stimulate industrial growth and development in some of these communities that have been left behind. So perfect for infrastructure in West Virginia, perfect for renewable energy in West Virginia. So we'll talk a bit about the hydrogen hub. So what the DOE did is they came out with this giant competition. They said, all right, we're going to pick 7 hubs across the country, and you guys all get together and compete on it. And I think there was like 50 proposed hubs that came into the DOE. They whittled it down to 12, and then they whittled it down to 7. So you can see there's one in the Pacific Northwest. That's going to be, I think that's going to be totally wind power. California's doing one where they're basically around their ports. Texas is doing one, the Gulf Coast, because they have such a energy component down there. Midwest, and then our hub, the Appalachian hub, was basically selected because we've got a plentiful amount of natural gas here, and natural gas can be used to make hydrogen. Natural gas is essentially methane, which is CH4. So if you strip off the carbon molecule, then you got 4 hydrogen molecules, and if you bury the hydrogen molecule, put it in the ground, you end up with relatively clean hydrogen. So the U.S. government saw Appalachia as a perfect place for one of the hydrogen hubs, and that's why we were selected in this area. And so each of the hydrogen hubs is a collection of projects. You really can't see it on the screen too well, but the Appalachian Regional Clean Hydrogen, ARCH2, is made up of producers, which there's one in Weirton, there's one over on the Ohio River, there's EQTs who be making hydrogen, there's Heat up in Pennsylvania, and then there's hydrogen users. So there's Plug Power who are going to use it to fuel forklift trucks to run around Amazon facilities. There's us who are using it to fuel trucks, heavy-duty trucks, to deliver hydrogen to our customers. And so the idea is to create this network, these hubs. Each hub is structured fairly the same as producers. To create this network to try to get hydrogen used in production on the ground. To try to create some economies of scale. So it's pretty funny. We're HogLick guys. I think we've got 20 people. So we're in EQT and MPLX, giant company. So we're kind of the little engine that could here in Marion County. So what is this? And I use the term CFS, Clean Fuel Services. Instead of everything going through HogLick, I kind of created a separate entity. But so what is the depot? Well, the depot is going to basically be a storage facility where trucks will come in, tube trailers will come in, offload the hydrogen to an on-site storage tank, and that hydrogen will be delivered at fairly high pressure, 700 bar, and then we'll basically do that or liquid, and then we'll take that hydrogen, reduce the pressure down, and deliver it into vehicles. So it's just like a giant gas station, essentially. But in order for that to make sense, it's got to have enough economies of scale. If you just have one hydrogen truck or 2 hydrogen trucks, it wouldn't make sense to build a gas station just to fuel a whole gas station, just to fuel up 1 or 2 cars. So we need to build, for this to be profitable, we need to build up scale economy. So we get a lot more vehicles using the hydrogen depot, and that's where these other products come in. So now, when Marion County wants to fill up their buses, they can use the hydrogen depot. They don't have to build or design their own depot. They can use this one. And so it's kind of an intersection between a one-stop shop, is what I like to call it, an intersection between OEMs saying, okay, here's what your mechanics have to do in order to fulfill my OEM needs. Here's my hydrogen suppliers. There's financing available. There's going to be state regulations, safety codes. We have to get the Marion County Fire Department involved in kind of how all this is. Hydrogen is flammable, so we have to get way ahead of that, and then also get the downstream components involved too. Who are the users? Who are going to be the trucking users behind the hydrogen vehicles? Now, this is the second project, the Clean Fuel Services Hydrogen Facility Overview. And as I mentioned, we're going to have a solar farm, which is about 50 to 60 acres. We've got 300 acres, so I've got a spot allocated for it. And that solar farm will run into an electrolyzer, which is basically like a giant electric machine that takes the electricity and runs it through a vat of water, and it creates the hydrogen and oxygen from the water. And then that hydrogen will run through the depot where it'll be stored, and then it'll be used to service vehicles. Now, the neat thing about this for Marion County, that this EPA grant that we have is 100% funded. So a lot of grants that, when you go look at it, it says, okay, if you want a $10 million grant, you, Marion County, or you, city, Fairmont, have got to put up $2 million, have got to put up $3 million. Well, this grant is 100% funded, so it's really attractive. I got Marion County Commission to say, well, there's really not a lot of risk in it for us to go put it there. So we working with Marion County Commission, and we've got a grant writing team available, and we put a lot of time in this application for the facility that we should hear something sometime in the June, July timeframe. If it works, great. If it doesn't, we're back to a quarry and a hydrogen depot. So I'll come at it again with one other. Here's just a little bit of the components. It kind of shows how the solar farm and the electrolyzer are all going to use the depot, and gives you the ability not to have to. A depot's going to cost about $20 million. So instead of having to, for Marion County, have to go build another depot somewhere else, another $20 million, because they don't have, they can use this depot, leverages the federal money that's already been spent, and gives Marion County something right here in their backyard. As I mentioned, the CF Institute, which is driven by, we haven't really thought about this until we started talking with Cummins in terms of what they're seeing as some of the obstacles to jumpstart the hydrogen economy. And they basically brought up, look, we're having a hard time. That's not our business. We make engines. We don't do mechanic training, and we don't do program management. So that's kind of what we jumped on and said, okay, that's something we can do, because if you got a depot, you got a maintenance facility, it can all be right there. It's a great place to train hydrogen because the vehicles are there anyway. They're kept on there for the quarry. And if this other grant comes through, Marion County will have their vehicles there too. So it kind of, all these two projects fit together and support one another, and leverages the federal dollars that are being spent. And these federal dollars are going to be spent. So we might as well take advantage of it. It's coming from here in my pockets from our tax dollars. So it behooves us to go out and get some of this funding brought locally instead of having to go to other places. Like I said, we've been involved in Fairmont and West Virginia. Actually, West Virginia has an alternative fuels program anyway, so we need to tap into that. It's been a nationwide program where they're looking at standards for alternative fuels. So I think we can dovetail on the WVU component, and then Pierpont is right up their alley in terms of vocational training and graduate training. So it would be kind of an adjunct to a diesel mechanic training course that's currently going on now. The other side of this is one of the key elements of what we want to do is we need to upgrade some existing infrastructure that are in and around the quarry. To get to the quarry now, you go down a gravel road, it floods, it's falling apart. So if you're going to dramatically increase the vehicle traffic across that road, we've got to upgrade it. So Marion County and with the Industrial Access Road Fund is actually going to pave the road. So that project has started. That's a $1.8 million project, so we'll get the initial access road paved. But this other connector, what we're trying to do is extend, and let me see if I can get you to this map. We're trying to extend, I'll just orient you. There's kind of 79 running down here. Here's Middletown Commons up here. Here's Middletown Road right here. So we're just off Middletown Road, just south of the industrial park. So what we're trying to do is, here's the access road to get to the quarry that's being worked on now. What we're trying to do is get a road all the way over to Enterprise, so connecting to Coons Run Road, and then, you've heard of the Bridge to Nowhere. Well, this will eventually connect to the Bridge to Nowhere. So this bridge to nowhere, I learned, has been built for 20 years, and it's been kind of sitting there. So this is actually what was intended with the bridge to nowhere. Originally, they were going to bring over from Harrison County. It was going to connect right into 79. That was going to be your direct access to 79. It never got built. So the bridge to nowhere kind of by itself. So this will connect into the bridge to nowhere. It'll give folks in Harrison County access to Marion County, to the mall, to I-79 Technology Park, but it'll also give me the ability to go west, and when I have to go up and around, I can just go right across into Enterprise. So that's kind of the infrastructure projects that are going on. Back for a second. The other thing we're doing is we'll enter you guys have probably heard about the TIF, the Middletown Commons TIF, very successful program to use bonds and taxes to jumpstart the development of Middletown Commons. It'll get paid back as business in Middletown Commons comes together. Well, there's also a TIF that's been set up around HogLick Hollow, around the forest. So we want to reactivate the TIF to get that infrastructure so we can bring sewage in there, sewer in there, we can bring fiber optic cable, and the local neighborhood around up in that area is very excited because right now they don't like me because I use like 90% of the internet connection into that house. So this will be great to get some additional fiber optic in there and build this infrastructure. Yeah, and here's just an example. TIF district, they've already put together plans. Whitehall PSD has put together plans to run feed drains into a sump, and the sump will take up their existing sewage connection, so they're excited about it. So in summary, this is I call it a generational opportunity for counties around the country because the money's there. It's just now being spent. You have to go out and get it. It's not going to get handed to you. But it really takes, I think, a partnership between counties and private industry to make this happen. Because left to their own devices, counties are probably not going to be aggressively pursuing this. It's just, it's just kind of, that's not in their wheelhouse. Whereas, private investors do have capability of resources, do have ideas that are commercial and can leverage the county. The county's going to be getting the funds because that's the way that the bill was set up. It's going to go to counties and states. So finding a way to leverage an interface between counties and private developers to kind of get access to that money is been critical. So turn that off. I think, again, I'm open to questions, and it's really an exciting opportunity here, and we'll see what we can make happen in the next 6 months. So good. Sure.
Cost is my first one thought. What's the comparison for each type of fuel, whether it's diesel, gas, or this?
Right. Right now, hydrogen is not competitive because hydrogen is basically made now from methane and it's shipped in from Pennsylvania. So that's where the funding that's coming in for the depot is the project budget is $24 million. Government's putting in $10 million, private industry's putting in 14. So a hydrogen truck will probably cost in the neighborhood of $500,000. A diesel truck, an aggregate, truck costs about $300,000. So if you can, the government's going to subsidize the cost of that diesel truck, bring the capital cost down. Now let's talk about operating costs. Diesel is $324 down, $34 a gallon. Right now, hydrogen is probably $7 or $8 on an equivalent basis. So hydrogen costs have got to come down too. The only way to do that is to produce hydrogen and create a surplus so hydrogen prices come down. So we're not it's not like hydrogen trucks are going to rule the world tomorrow. I mean, we're into a 5 to 10 year process. But I can tell you it's coming. I mean, with the fuel limitation restrictions that are coming with EPA, with air rules coming forward. I mean, California's way out ahead. They're going to ban diesel-powered vehicles. I mean, I can tell you it's coming. So my objective is to get out ahead of that and be there so when it does get here, we're not caught flat-footed. But yes, you're right. Right now, not competitive.
I got 3 questions. My name's Tom Manuel, and you probably seen my name on a document or 2. My farm butts right up against HogLick Hollow.
Okay.
First of all, I'm sure you've done all kinds of research on why you put this here. But you said it was an abundance of natural gas. But this is a dry gas area. Don't you people use wet gas? And it looked like it would be closer to the wet gas area. You don't have to answer. It's just, I'm curious, if you had any information on that, give it to me. The second one is, I like to be a good neighbor, but the way West Virginia is built, and then you guys own a hollow, I own a hollow. Boots Creek runs through my farm, so if you spit in that stream, it's gonna come on me. I hope you're aware of that.
Yeah, no, I cross Booth Creek every day, so we're very aware of it.
Yeah.
Very aware. So we have.
And I know industrial development, it changes the land. It has to. And I applaud your work in that area, and I'm sure they got government agencies, but just remember, I'm next door, downwind. The third question would be, what's the timeline on this? How long is this going? Is this something you're going to start tomorrow and do, or is this something just in the planning stage?
Right. That's good questions. So one, first question about methane. So dry gas or wet gas, it doesn't really make a difference. The methane that comes out is, whether it's in a liquid form or vapor form, you still strip it to make hydrogen. And when I say this area is rich in natural gas, I meant the Appalachian region, not just HogLick Hollow. I mean, there's no gas wells in our neighborhood. But it's really more the fact that there's natural gas close by. So we don't have to ship it in from Canada or wherever it's here. So you save money on transportation costs. The second thing is, very, very aware of Booth Creek. And so our quarry, for instance, we have our water, all our runoff from the quarry has to funnel to a holding pond, and then every month there's measured releases. So we're kept under pretty tight wraps in terms of, and we don't have any arsenic or anything like that in our water. So it's a pretty clean area. Now let's talk about the industrial development that is going to come. So yes, you're going to have more trucks using HogLick Hollow, but hopefully we can get the road built up so that right now, if you drive a HogLick Hollow, it's not the safest place in the world to get big trucks. So we're trying to widen that, be a good neighbor, and widen that, and make sure it's available to everybody. And then the other side of that, that's really the only, I think, negative environmental impact. Making hydrogen from solar and water, no emissions. Running hydrogen trucks, when you burn hydrogen, the end result is water. So we're actually going to be reducing the air emissions in and around that quarry area, because we'll take the diesel trucks off the road and we'll upgrade the road facility to begin with. So, and then your third question, sorry, what was that? That was the
timeline.
Oh, the timeline, yeah. We're into probably a 5-year, for instance, talking about this, so Cummins is developing a hydrogen vehicle that the first prototype is going to be 2025. They won't make commercial production of these vehicles until 27, 28. Nikola's got a vehicle now that they're selling. It's a long haul truck. Well, that's not what I'm focused on. I'm focused on the triaxles to move forward. So I think you're going to see this play out over the next 5 years. It's not going to happen tomorrow. So.
Okay.
And we're happy to come, bring you to the quarry and show you around, and
I've been there a couple times.
Yeah, thank you. There's a lot of details and data that go along with everything that you're talking about.
Oh, yeah.
Extreme natural resource extraction. Right now, we're fracked to death. The MVP, when it goes in, the gas is coming from here. When you want to do all your stuff with natural gas, it's coming from here. And there is absolutely an environmental impact, even in electrolysis, in producing hydrogen. There's several different ratios, but one of the middle ones is 12 gallons of water to 1 gallon of hydrogen. then the water is gone. It isn't just toxic, it isn't hope that we're gonna be able to clean that water someday and it won't kill us or, you know, do all the damage that's already done. So no, this project, there's a lot more details that you need to present to the community so that they can make their own decisions, because this isn't unicorns and rainbows. And the money, I believe, in all of the predictions that I've read and I've seen, hydrogen for fuel is gonna be the beta cassette for video, home video. So, thank you very much for your time.
Yeah,
Let's
no,
go.
and part of the bipartisan infrastructure law is very much of a focus on community development and community engagement. So we haven't even gotten started yet on the project. We're still in discussions. The hydrogen hub is still in discussions with the Department of Energy. So we haven't been officially kicked off yet. There's been no money flowing, but part of the requirements, and it's not to go into too much detail, but there's 4 phases to this hydrogen hub project. Phase 1 hasn't started yet. And each phase, to get from phase 1 to phase 2, you have to go through, meet certain DOE requirements. And one of the major requirements is community engagement. So and phase 1 is just a planning phase, and part of that is really making sure that we do engage with the community, and the information is out there, and there's not a lot of misinformation. Because it's a good story. I mean, you know, I take your point on methane, but natural gas is going to be around for quite some time. So it's better to make hydrogen out of it and you burn it. Make hydrogen out of it, because if you can capture the carbon, you take the carbon out of the air. If you just burn the methane, you put the carbon in the air. So that's kind of, and I'll have another discussion with you on that, but that's kind of the driver of this whole thing.
You briefly mentioned it when you were just talking, but I was going to ask if there are any roadblocks that you have encountered or plan on encountering in regards to state departments, state regulations, and I was going to ask if you have any sort of relationship established with the legislature.
I mean, just trying to get things done. We've been working on this access road for, I don't know, 3 years, at least 4 years. So it's just starting to move forward. It's really kind of making sure the wheels of government go forward. And you know, West Virginia's vote pro-business, which is great, but just kind of, you know, making the cogs turn has been a challenge. So, and yeah, we have, you know, Matt's here with the West Virginia Economic Development. So we have good relations with, at the state level, and then at the county level, we're working very closely with the commission in terms of, you know, making sure that, you know, we're not out in front of them too much, or kind of tying into their objectives as well.
When would you imagine having, so my wife and I, we know when the country was moving, we had 4 box trucks in
Okay.
Fairmont.
Right.
So, I mean, this is very interesting. I run trucks for a living. I understand that when that penny goes up on the gas meter,
Right.
it affects everybody. So, what would you imagine that it makes sense for someone like me to do a transfer if I wanted to?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. So you need to have a source of hydrogen that's cheap, right? So we gotta get trucks on the roads, we can get more hydrogen, so the cost per kilograms goes down. And then the cost of the truck itself. So that has got to come down too. And so that's basically going to be getting manufacturers, their production lines, get assembly lines going. So I would say you're probably, like I said to this gentleman here, you're probably 3, 4, 5 years out before you get a cheap enough source of hydrogen and a cheap enough source of the truck to make it parity. So study I saw from NREL, which is the National Renewable Energy Lab, says they think that parity is going to be reached between diesel and hydrogen in 2030. And so everybody says, well, let's just use electric vehicles. You cannot use electric vehicles for long haul or large weight transfer. It just doesn't work, you know. And then if you're going to do a long transfer, charging a large truck is a 3 to 4 hour process. So you can't be a trucker taking your load from Maine to Florida and have to stop every 10 hours to spend another 4 hours to charge it. It's not going to happen. So that's where hydrogen really has an advantage, is in the long haul and heavy duty transport component. So in your business, effectively. Thank you. Anybody? Good. Oh, sorry.
Well, yeah, talked about, public input
Right.
and getting feedback from communities.
Sure.
But I do wanna say that the plans are already sort of starting to roll, sites have been selected, but there's been virtually no public input today. In fact, did you participate in the Department of Energy's virtual listening session
Yes.
in March?
And there's another one coming up, in 2 weeks.
Yeah, well, the one in March, there were probably between 15 and 20 people who got to speak live during the listening session.
Mhm.
And all of them, academics, community members, civic groups, other people, to a person, they're opposed to these hydrogen hubs coming in next to our communities. So talk about when is the public input gonna happen? Are you all listening to what you heard in the first listening session? What's the plan to integrate community concerns, resistance, their concerns for their safety? What are the plans for taking the
Yeah,
next step?
so what we're doing, and a lot of the projects in our hub we're doing, is we are setting up what's called a community advisory board, and that is gonna be composed of people that live in the area. This gentleman to be on the board, somebody from Marion County, somebody from Harrison County, somebody from the fire department, somebody from Appalachian Resource Council, and that advisory board will kind of go along with us as we develop the project. And so they'll see all of the permitting requirements, they'll be part of the project development team effectively, so that we can make sure we get out. And I think a lot of this is basically, there's a lot of bad information out there. You know, people kind of grab hold of something and run with it, but it's not true. So I think part of that community advisory board is educating them and then allowing them to be a bridge to the community, so we do get the right information out, and it's a good story. Or, once we hear their issues, let's address them, let's find a way to address those issues. So that community advisory board is going to be very instrumental in basically being the mouthpiece, and they'll have their own community engagement events, you know, smaller, local. The one you refer to is the Department of Energy just basically set up a giant conference call across the country, so everybody that wanted to listen in could listen. And each one of the hydrogen hubs around the country is doing these listening sessions. Well, that's great, but you got to get it down to local level. So part of the development activities that we'll have are local level meetings where it's just people. You know, it's not on a conference call. We'll do it at at a community college here or some kind of a local event, so people can participate. So that's going to happen. And we're not, like I said, we haven't even been awarded the project yet. It's a proposed project. We're trying to get it awarded sometime in June or July, but that's kind of a wild card too. So.
But why not the community input before?
Because we don't know what the government's willing to allow us to do. So the idea is, here's what we'd like to do. Does this government, U.S. government, fit with your objectives, Department of Energy, from the standpoint of meeting the energy needs, addressing community concerns, and then let's take it out to the community and see what. So if we try to do a chicken and the egg, you'll never get anywhere, because there's going to be thousands of different views of what will happen, and this person's never going to have a hydrogen hub, but over my dead body. So let's come out with a catalyst and use that as a starting point, and then we'll modify it. We'll modify it so it fits and it satisfies, what's good for the community, what's good for the environment, what's good for jobs and development.
What if we don't want it?
Then say so. I'm just saying.
It's going to, with all the stuff that's been talked about today, the commons and downtown, with an industrial park that close, and all of this traffic, trucks and noise and all that stuff is going to absolutely destroy what has already been built.
I don't agree with you that it's absolutely going to destroy it. It's creating jobs, it's creating revenue for the community.
There's a
It's
magic
clean.
word.
Okay, it's clean. You just can't say, oh, you got to come up with concrete reasons why you don't want it, why it doesn't make sense.
There's a lot of them, but we can talk about that. But I do agree with her. We've already made all these plans, you got your maps and you got all this stuff, but it was never brought to the community to begin with. I live like 5 miles away.
There's no ground, there's no permits issued, there's no award. This is all a proposal. So your comments I want to hear, but let's do it in the right context at the right time, right? Because right now we're just we're just talking.
Why not now?
Because I don't know what I'm allowed to do. The government hasn't given me any money to say, okay, here's your project, now go take it out to the community. So let's take that step, and then we'll definitely sit down and address your concerns.